The course is starting, Chapter 10. Welcome to Chapter 10. Let's get straight into it. Boom. You know who I am. I'm your host, Andrew's Method. The one working with you to get through all this key information. All right? So, we've done a lot so far. We've already gone through the first 9 chapters all the way to trucking etiquette, how to move around out here, home life and budgeting, what to do at home to make our trucking business more efficient as far as being able to maintain and keep profit, how to drive as an owner-operator, how to make our equipment last, what our cost per mile is, what truck should we be choosing, looking into what motor, buying by motor instead of by brand. What does my operation look like? Let's talk about all the other operations, different options, and the mentality that it even takes to really put all this in motion. So now we are at where? Number 10, shop etiquette. So here's some like an oil pan and a turbo and inside of a cylinder head. Some pictures I took at one of my local independent shops at the time of this writing. So let's get right into it, all right? Because this is a very important chapter when it comes to how you decide to interact with part stores. Which part stores do you choose? Which service points do you choose? Do you go to dealerships? And all that good stuff. It has a very key part in in your business. So let's get straight into it, and I'll tell you what I know about it and what my opinions are and what I think. Shops and part stores, interaction and etiquette. Shops and part stores are going to be a big part of your operation in one way or another. Even for a guy like me that does most of his own labor, I still need the part stores. How you conduct yourself in these places of business can really make or break you. In the beginning of my trucking business, I got hustled a lot, many times by dealerships and part stores. Why? The main reason was because I was brand new. I was green, so to speak. And yeah, I was just brand new. I didn't know mechanical knowledge. And so if you don't know mechanics and they think that you're young, especially, a lot of these people, these foremen, these shops, these dealerships, they'll take the heart out of it, and they will just attempt to, take you for what you got. And what I mean by that is, take you for what you got financially. This is an important thing for you to understand if you're going to be successful in this business of ours, which is what, if you don't know mechanics, and especially if they think you're young, many people will appear to be helping you, but what they're actually doing is taking you for a financial ride. So, first things first, a big difference to understand. What I think you need to know is the difference between a dealership and an independent shop. Hopefully that goes without saying. It's pretty self-explanatory, but just really getting to know the difference between a dealership and an independent shop and being okay with going to the independent shops, as we'll talk about. You need to know the difference between paying full retail price or when to ask for a cheaper price on parts or service. You need to know how to figure out what you need a shop to do instead of having a shop diagnose and tell you what you need done. That's always preferred. If you can get down there and troubleshoot yourself and do this, and come to a pretty nice conclusion that, like, hey, I think this is what the next plan of action, you can go to the shop and have them do that instead of charge you another 2 to 4 hours, poking around to find some other stuff that may not need to be done or have nothing to do with that, or just the troubleshooting time alone. You need to understand that these big-time dealerships, in most cases, are not your friend. I don't want to say always, but in most cases, not your friend. They are just normal people, right? They got a job, 9-to-5 job, punching the clock, pretty much with no emotion to your situation. They are there to please the big corporate machine and collect their W-2 paycheck and go home. So it's a different level of responsibility that they have and that we have, and our level of responsibility is usually one that's like, it's not their job. They don't have to care about that. They're not going to look into it more like an independent shop would to your particular situation and go off your character and your business and what you're bringing to the table. Now, here's another very important thing right here in the yellow. You can come back and look at it whenever you get ready, but just because you pay a professional to do the job, that doesn't mean it will be done right. Okay? You need to understand that even in these high dollar dealerships, sometimes the mechanics that are put out on the floor on the job are brand new mechanics. You might have more experience than them. At a certain point, you will have more experience. Happens to me all the time. I have way more mechanical experience than some of the guys that are on the floor at these different places, especially the new guys they put on the floor. Yeah, some of these guys, they put them on the floor brand new with little to no life experience. You need to understand that at dealerships, some mechanics will lollygag around on your time, making your bill more expensive, while they make jokes and drink soda with their friends. This used to always really frustrate my wife. She'd be like, we're not paying them to drink Mountain Dew. But for real, we have to understand that dealerships are used to billing the big fleets whatever they want. They have a lot of big fleets come in and out. The big companies, and just send them a bill. That's what they're used to doing. You have to remind them that you are the one paying the bill, not a big fleet. I'm the one paying the bill. All right. You gotta push. You gotta get a little personal and foot down-ish, but in a likable way. Just let them know that you're not that one. You're not that big dealership. You're not the one that just wreck up this crazy bill and send it off. So here we go. One thing to understand is, you have to understand how to play the game. And I have that in quotation marks. Play the game. At the parts store as well. Certain people do get priority, and it's all about who you are and the time you genuinely spend with the people who run the shops and parts stores. Keyword genuinely. The goal is to have your parts store guys know you by name and to have a casual to high respect for you and for them to actually like you. Right? It helps out so much. And we don't have to kiss up behind people for this to happen either. We just genuinely spend time with them. We just listen to them, and eventually they'll want to ask us questions and know about us, and there you go. The relationship is being built. Why do you need to know and do all of this? Well, you do it so that you can have a competitive edge, out here in this business. This competitive edge will allow you to reverse these potentially negative conditions and make them turn in your favor. The more you know and the better your awareness is, the more you can avoid having this broken system of shops and parts stores break down on you. Don't let that happen, okay? Don't let this broken system of shops and parts stores break down on you. And how we get around that is by getting more and more familiar with our truck, paying attention to people when they're working on their truck, asking mechanics questions, watching YouTube videos, and trying to fix things ourselves before we pay somebody to do it. All those things is what's going to give us the awareness so that this broken system of shops and parts stores won't be the one that breaks down on us or puts us out of business. Like it does for so many people. This broken system puts many people out of business. So that's why we have a whole chapter right here called Shops and Parts Stores. And we also will go into, when we get into chapter 12, which is all about maintenance. And I'm going to help you get more familiar with, having confidence into, being more connected to your truck and being in your awareness of what's going on mechanically as well. So first things first, I suggest to know your truck. People at shops and the mechanics know when you don't know your truck. They know when you don't know your pitman arm from your drag link. They know when you just come in there throwing your truck at them like, please, just fix it, right? That's like asking to be an open checkbook for these guys, right? Because many shops will treat you like an open checkbook. Just saying, right? We're just gonna get these hard truths out the way. This not a scare tactic, of course. You've been with me for 10 chapters now, but some shops will do it on purpose. Like an open checkbook if you come in there not knowing your stuff. Some shops will do it on purpose and run up a crazy high bill on you just because they think they can take advantage of you. Some shops will also make up high bills on you just because they don't know what they're doing and keep messing up or guessing wrong on what needs to be fixed, or they are just plain slow and making you pay for it. So those are things to keep in mind too. Oops, excuse me. But to the importance of knowing our truck. That sometimes these high bills are made because people think they can take advantage, but sometimes it's just because they don't know what they're doing. And if they don't know what they're doing, we got to help them to figure out what it is that they're doing, so we don't have this crazy dumb bill, this ridiculous bill at the end of it, right? All right. Some shops will give you a hard time just because they don't like you for some reason, right? They don't like your look, your age, your hairstyle. Maybe it's your positive mentality, your political stance, your demographic category that we get put into, and etc. Right? So this is why you got to know your stuff. Period. And proceed as a businessman or a woman. And this goes for the man, owner, operator, and the woman, owner, operator. This is why you got to know your stuff. So that all this little silly stuff that they want to try to judge us on at face value can go out the window because you know what you're doing. And you get your foot down firm, but in a likable way. If you can't make a deal, see, that's why I got this in red, right? If you can't make a deal or you don't get a good vibe from a shop, then just don't hesitate to say, hey, thanks, and just keep it moving. Don't even got to stick around. But most of the time, it won't come to that as long as you stand your ground but still be a likable person, right? Most people won't mess with you too much when and if you know your stuff. Well, if and when you know your stuff. All right? And a lot of this, feeling out, and snuffing these shops out can be done over the phone. And when you go to build your local network of shops closer to where you call home, then you could be, feeling these shops out in person. But a lot of the time, if I need something done over the road, I can call a couple places, and I can just go by the vibes of what's going on in that place. Like if I get, if somebody's like, hey, just hold, and they just put me on hold or something, I'm just like 10 minutes later, and they pick up the phone, they're like, yeah, so what do you want? I'm like, oh yeah, I don't think I want to do business with you. I just go to the next person, or I go to a dealership, and they're like, oh, well, we're really backed up. It's been like 2 weeks and this, and I'm like, all right, next, until you click with somebody that's like, okay, I like the vibe of this person. Like, yeah, my name is, Tony, come on through. If you bring your truck in today, we'll come take a look at it, and and we're gonna go from there. And that's what I'm talking about by like checking the vibe of places, because better believe if you don't like their vibe now, then you're definitely not gonna like them when they start trying to, not perform or take too much time or do things that you didn't ask to be done and want to bill you for it and stuff. It's just usually, and the more intuition, your intuition will get better with time of which shops and the vibes of what's going on within each place. And a good way to feel the vibe too is just to see who's running it. It's always better perspective to make those opinions and assumptions off, once you meet who's actually running it, or even the foremans, sometimes the mechanics, etc. Well, sometimes the mechanics. Yeah, like if I need a little thing done, I'm at like TA Petros or different places, not just TA Petros, Loves, anywhere, right? That offers like national assistance in different places. If I'm kind of going in there and I see the guys are just like kicking the can or asking them a question or two and it's not too much experience there, then I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to wait 6 hours. I'll just do it myself. So always remember that secret that that I showed you earlier, right? Which is to always use people's names. Always use people's names when possible. When you use people's names, you make them feel special. It's just human nature. The thing about it, you make them feel as if they are part of your family and team. Now, yes, this could be considered slight manipulation, but as long as your intentions are well, it's just a tactic for better results in business. Use the shop foreman's name and also use the mechanic's name. Use your own name often enough until people begin to remember it. Be knowledgeable of your truck, right? Stand your ground in a likable way. Smile, but be firm. Not like we're just smiling because it's, the correct, the politically correct thing to do or whatever. No, it's just like your smile comes with a degree of firmness. You have to earn that smile, so to speak. You still, still give it out, but it's like, but not just being, hopefully you get what I'm saying. I call it dumb nice, not being dumb nice. I haven't come up with a better, a less aggressive term than dumb nice, but it's just like being foolish nice. It's just, adults, the more somebody's been around, they'll see that foolish nice as something they can take advantage of. A lot of us that grew up down south, we have it in us a lot because we were taught to be, really respect our elders and always be like, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. And sometimes a lot of us, we don't grow out of that. Next thing you know, we're in our 20s and 30s and 40s still calling people yes ma'am, no ma'am, and just being kind of like foolish nice. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but in business, that's a great way how we get taken advantage of, and people run stuff up on us that we didn't agree to. You want to be that force, right? You want to be so likable and so on your way and knowing what you want and just out here doing what you do. You want to be that force that nobody wants to stop, because they're like, hey, just look at them go. I just want to see that happen. I want to see that win. Look at her go. I want to see her win. You want to have such an attractive personality that nobody wants to say no to you. So it's a nice goal to have, and it's attainable, and we just keep on getting better at it. There's times where I feel like, I go through whatever little rut in my own mind or whatever. I'm like, okay, I feel like I might lose my edge on my attractiveness of the personality. But then it just comes back to doing the discipline of what we did in chapter 2, mentality, subconscious mind, auto-suggestion, and just like taking back the wheel and just tell ourselves like, no, I want my imagination to be better. I need to quit imagining all this stuff. It doesn't even make sense. Let me go back to telling myself who I am and get back into, being this attractive personality. But this attractive personality is something we have to work on. But the cool part about having an attractive personality, half of the battle is just telling yourself over and over again that you do have an attractive personality. You do have an attractive personality. I do have an attractive personality. I do. Right? So, but without knowledge, potentially you're just, you're just kind of like a big front. Like those like the buildings out in the westerns where they look like they're 3 or 4 stories tall, but they were really just one. It was a big front. So you can be a big front for sure, right? We always have to be a big front to an extent, but make sure to back it up with knowledge and know-how. We will talk more in the maintenance chapter, but know the components of your truck, right? And what I mean by know the components of your truck, instead of being so broad, we'll break it down even more specifically here. Understand your drive line, which is from your transmission to your differential to your next differential. So all the parts up and down your drive shaft, your U-joints, your yokes, from piece to piece to your swing bearings, it's just one line. It's a drive line that goes to your differential, then to your other differential. Understand how your emission systems work. We'll talk about what's really going on with EGR, DPF, DOC, SCR, and DEF, and Understand data communication flow, which is J1939 in most cases. And some of the newer trucks are even on a more of a multiplex system, but this is the J1939 is the data communication flow. Understand the parts of your motor, right? Just, get familiar with looking at your motor and where your parts are, like, where your oil pump is, your oil cooler, turbo, radiator, and etc. Understand what their purposes are and how much they cost. In due time, keep a good mental note of about how much parts should cost, so you know that you're not getting overcharged on certain places, especially if you're over the road. The more you understand about these important parts of your truck, the more you can find the problems in advance and advise the shop of what you need done, not the other way around. The more you understand about these important parts of your truck, the more people at the shops and stores will take you serious. Page 12. This is the name of the game. You want to be able to go into the shop and tell them what you need done, and not vice versa. You should almost never go into a shop and just have them figure out what the issue is. Not unless it's a home shop, independent shop. These guys and they're good people, and that they're genuinely decent people who aren't there to take you for a ride, but just do well business. Excuse me. If you need their help in troubleshooting, do what you can to get over to an independent shop that you trust, or that you vetted out through the phone call process, and they have a decent vibe, and you felt well about the conversation, and let them know all the things you've already checked. So even when you go, you're like, hey, I've already checked this, and this. I've checked this wire, so that way they're not, let me just read, and let them know all the things you've already checked. Let them know what you think it is, and go from there. This will show them that you are not a pushover, and that you do have mechanical sense. It also shows that you will be much harder to trick into paying for a bigger repair bill. Just by getting out there and being active and pointing at this and be like, hey, look, I already checked my alternator. My alternator's putting out 13.7 volts. My batteries are doing well, and so they're like, oh, okay. So we can't just tell him it's this little phony thing over here, because he's gonna want to check it before we pull it off. And that's another thing too. I always do stuff like that. When something's wrong, I like to go up there and look at it and like show me, like convince me that it's really wrong. And I've been doing this long enough that people don't like to go there with me unless it's for real what it is, because I'll be able to tell. I know it may sound like I'm not trusting anyone, but in my life experience, you have to do what you can do to set the tone in your business. That's all it is. You're just setting the tone of how other people are supposed to do business with you. You have to separate the way you feel personally from the way you handle your business. Don't forget, right? This is a business, and you work hard for your profit. You must take control of your situation as much as possible so you can keep it. So you can do what? Keep the profit, right? Next thing I advise when it comes to shops and part stores is to create a home base of shops and part stores that you can rely on. Big deal. If you are like me in the beginning, I really didn't have a home base of operations. I left my hometown at 21, started leasing at 22, and got my first truck at 23. I didn't have a home of my own yet outside of my family, and that was okay, but I always told myself, hey, when I settle somewhere, I'm going to build a great network of people who know me by name and who I can really rely on. And that's exactly what I've done over the years. It took a while, for that reality to manifest, but it happened. Building a reliable network has proved to be a great improvement to my operation. I have 2 independent shops I use for 2 different types of jobs. My one shop I can almost get straight in and straight out in one day. I go there for body work and medium level like suspension work. They know me by name, they know my wife, and they know that I'm a great person with common sense who works hard. You see what I'm saying? Boom. We just build our reputation up for who we are. They make exceptions for me all the time. Yeah. My next shop is one that specializes in major engine and suspension repair. If I need to put a clutch in, this is my place to go. If I need help doing an engine job that's a little out of my skill range, this is where I go. This is the place where I go when I need a highly skilled job done. I know the owner, both of the owners, and all the mechanics by name. I love the way he runs his shop. Each mechanic specializes in a certain style of work, so they become really great. Each mechanic becomes really great, at the one thing they really specialize in. And between them all, they're a full package. And the shop is only 5 miles from my house. Come on. Yep. And just so you know that this shop is actually it's 5 miles. It's right by the Love's truck stop in Monroe, Louisiana. As at the time of this recording, the Love's just opened about 2 or 3 weeks ago now. I think Speedco opens today. I'm about to go up there and have my differential oil changed and transmission. But this shop is it's about 5 miles. It's about 3 or 4 miles from the Love's right there in Monroe, Louisiana. All right. Shop is called Diesel Specialist, Monroe, Louisiana. Go check out Pete. He's the owner. Pete and Danny. Tell him I sent you. Tell him Andrew sent you. Andrew, the guy that wrote the book. Yep, he knows. Actually, yeah, you can say Andrew's Method. They'd also know me by Andrew's Method too. Not just my first and last in my company name. Cause all the guys around here, they know I wrote this book and I been putting all this stuff together, right? So it's all cool. But yeah, just let them know. But they're usually pretty backed up. It usually takes quite a few days to get in and stuff because all the locals, we trust them with our work and they do a great job. So if you need to, that's something to know. By the Love's truck stop. It's on that same road, Millhaven Road. So the only thing about this shop is the owner operators have found the value, right, in this shop as well. So when I go to this shop of mine, I'm in no rush and already expect a week or two sometimes to get the job done. Sometimes it's faster, but again, it's okay because at the end of the day, if we can't afford to wait a little while to get quality work done, then we are probably not doing our business right in the first place. There's no reason why, we shouldn't be able to do that eventually, especially once we get past the beginning stages of business, okay? Waiting a week or two to get high quality work done with the convenience of being at home is way different than waiting a week or two at a dealer whose work will be overpriced, probably low quality, and the cost for a hotel and food. Something to keep in mind. So, building a network of shops that you can rely on is very important. This goes for being over the road as well. If you tend to travel the same areas frequently, you're always up and down I-81 or I-40, different parts of the country, then just pay attention to, your options in the shops in the cities and towns along the way. If you ever end up needing a shop on the road and they treat you well, remember this shop for next time. Just like Charles at Justice Towing in Chapter 1, his shop is duly noted in my head and in my book, and I will go out of my way next time if I'm in the general area and I need a shop. Yeah, right there at St. Paul's, Fayetteville, South Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'll tell you one thing that I do that maybe other people aren't doing as well is but I highly appreciate my local team of shops and park guys. So every Christmas time I go out and buy gift cards to the most popular restaurant in town and make personal letters to each person that has been a part of my trucking company's success. There's usually about 10 or 15 people that I go through in this network of mine, and each person will get a $25 to $50 gift card for their involvement in my business. I've even given gift cards to people I wasn't too impressed with, but who I did business with on a regular basis. I consider this a sign of good faith. Some will call this bribing, but I call this true appreciation and profit sharing. It's just like, instead of just saying, hey, thanks for this and thanks for, making this exception for me or doing this, it's like, hey, thank you. Hope your family's doing well, and I wish you guys a great next year. In this case, it's, a great 2022. And inside will be a gift card for going out to eat. Part of the reason I did so well this year is because of the help of my team. So I share some of the profit as a thank you. It's not a crazy amount of money. Sometimes, I probably spend around $500, give or take, $300 to $500. But it's so nice to go around and make my rounds and be able to put into each person's hand, hey, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And with each person gets their own personalized note, and that way they know that you genuinely mean it. Right? So, as long as you keep the receipts, you can also claim this as a deduction on taxes under the category of consultation. But my objective every year is to say, thank you. Thank you for supporting my small trucking business, and thank you for being a part of my success this year. You will be surprised how quickly people will start to remember you, your name, and your business when you go out of your way like this to thank people. I'd say by the second or third year I was doing this, it was just like every year it got better. I would just come into places like, hey, hey, Andrew, hey, Mr. Higgins, how you doing? And because it's genuine, it's real. A couple of days after, but see, here's how I do it, right? A couple of days after Christmas, I think is what I do. Is the perfect time to do this, since people have already got all their gifts, right? And they are already in the mentality of expecting gifts. So this helps them seem like, helps it seem like it's not bribery. I do this every year. If your intentions are well, then it isn't bribery anyways. But you might as well be natural as possible with your approach of your appreciation. So instead of like July 1st comes through, you're like, hey, I'm going to give everybody gift cards. Thank you for helping my business this year. It's like, it's a little weird, maybe. But at Christmas time, folks are, there's already gifts being received. And it's just like, so I wait right after Christmas when everybody's like, oh, I already got, the best is already done. It's like, nope, I'll come through it like, here you go, I got another one for you. Yeah, fun stuff. So let's keep it moving. That's something cool to know that you can definitely implement to, up your rapport, if you genuinely feel that way. Yeah, but I think it's a positive thing to do. Shows appreciation, and it helps to slow people down a little bit, to pay attention and see you and your business in the clutter of everything else that they're doing. Dealerships versus independent. All right, so let's talk about this next. Very important. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. Stay away from dealerships, basically, right? If at all possible. Now, if you're having a warranty on a truck that you have, excuse me, different things like that, then maybe you're kind of married to the dealerships for a little while, and that's okay. But I'm going to continue to read, so that way you'll have this, at least in the back of your mind, and for everybody else in the front. So if you must deal with a dealership, be very firm and don't let them push you around. You're almost guaranteed to have a better experience at an independent shop. Why? Because independent shops are small businesses that rely on customer service to stay in business. Big dealerships don't usually care much about customer service. The smaller shop will have more incentive to do better business with you. Dealerships don't even like to help with warranty issues some of the time. Really. So, if you are under a warranty and must go to the dealer, I understand, but please just stand your ground and be prepared to leave those dealerships in your past as you progress in your trucking business. You are also way more likely to find skilled labor at independent shops. Most of the really good mechanics that I've met are the ones who really like the low-key, mom-and-pop style environment way more than the corporate punch-the-clock, do-as-you're-told style. So a lot of those great mechanics end up finding home at independent shops anyways, because they have more free range to do what they want to do and not be so micromanaged. All right, now here's another thing to be prepared for and to be aware of, that people may not like you, right? I got this a lot over the years, especially when I was younger. Now, this is not my first time with locks. Had locks a couple times when I was younger, and it's just different things, right? That people might just take for face value, and let's just talk about it right here. Boom. People may not like you, and that's okay. First and foremost, it's okay. Not to get too deep into psychology, but it seems like most people have some type of prejudice or self-doubt or self-hate that they take out on others. I don't want to say that most people, but a lot of people, but yeah, I can still say most people do have a prejudice, self-doubt, or self-hate, even if it's just like a slight degree of it. But still, they take it out on others, and and you can't let these shortcomings of others interfere with your business. Because that's what it is. When somebody doesn't like us, usually it's because of a shortcoming in their life that they want to take out on us. So strive to be the better man or the better woman, and be be the best man or woman that you can be, right? Keep your head high, keep your back straight, your chest out, and by being knowledgeable, professional, and likable, this will help you eliminate 50 to 75% of these issues with people, because they see that you're upright and you're handling your business, and you never did them wrong or disrespected them. So they know they would be out of place and out of pocket to want to give you a hard time because of their own self-hate, self-doubt, or prejudice, or whatever that they want to take out on you. You just have to be confident in where you're going and be confident in what you want. Be confident in where you're going, where you need to go, and be confident in what it is that you're doing, or what it is that you want out of what you're doing. As long as you're semi-respectful, you should be fine. And just remember to keep this etiquette that we talked about in the previous chapter as much as possible. The professionalism etiquette, and when possible, okay. Because usually fighting their fire back with fire, it usually doesn't really fix much. But but when you stand your ground in a likable way, it's like what I like to compare to fighting fire with water. So somebody's got to throw their little fire at you, and just stand your ground in a likable way. Just dump a little cup of water on their stuff, and it's like, and they put the little fire out. And it's like, oh yeah, now they realize they were just doing what they've been doing to the next man, but you're not the next man. They made an assumption, and now it's on them. But nonetheless, it's just something to be prepared for. When people don't like us, we do our best not to get into the tick for tat with them and fight fire with fire. We just come to do what we came to do. Here's another thing to keep in mind, is that most part stores do have wiggle room in their price. So I advise here, don't be cheap or don't be a pain, but do know most part stores have quite a bit of wiggle room in their prices. In a certain portion of the part stores, some parts guys even do work off commission too. So it's only natural that they will work up the price a little bit. Remember this, some of these parts guys are working off commission, so it's okay to go back and forth on the prices with them, because they're just going to get a little bit on their commission, but they're going to see how much you will allow for them to get off your commission, for their commission. So it pays to call around and ask for prices on parts. Once you get the lowest price on a part, go to your preferred store and let them know the other store has it for the lower price, but you would rather buy it here. Stuff like that. If the place you're dealing with isn't too corporate, they will likely go down on their price. Don't complain about the prices of everything, but if it seems out of place or too expensive, then call it out so you can make a better deal. I've got many price reductions by simply dealing with the same parts guys over and over again. Sometimes I'll be like, wow. I was like, $75 for this little part. And after pausing for a moment, my parts guy will be like, well, you know what? Since it's you, Andrew, let me see what I can do to get this price down for you. Stuff like that. And the cool part is, a lot of the times, I don't even do this consciously. I'm just honestly blown away with the price, and my supporting team will accommodate. I'm just honestly blown away. I'm like, wow, $100 for this little plug? That's ridiculous. Ridiculous, but so just know, whether at home or over the road, the price for a part likely has some wiggle room in it to be a little cheaper. Don't be afraid to make deals. The worst they can say is, no, we can't do it, woo-woo-woo. Also, see about getting an account set up at the places you go to a lot. An account with the name of your LLC will do fine, or even if it's just your personal name. This may help you get preferred pricing, and at the very least, it'll show a track record of all the things that you've been buying and show that you're a return regular customer. Now, we mentioned this earlier, but it goes to say again here, I advise to be aware of this. Not all professionals do a professional job. Just because you hire a professional doesn't mean you will necessarily get professional work done. I've had to go behind the work of many professionals many times in my day. It's always a good practice anyways to just check the work of others, even if it's someone you trust. Just go back over the work and make sure all the bolts are tightened, make sure the fluids are topped off, that the wires are covered and zip tied out of the way that doesn't cause them to rub on something and make a short. Right? Sometimes people will really do some sleazy, low-down stuff out here, or sometimes people are just really not wanting to put the extra effort in to take that wire harness that I just said and make sure that it's covered instead of sitting on this hot transmission or not zip tied out the way where it's rubbing on something. It's just like, hey, I did the job, I don't have to do that. So it's just to be aware of that too. For example, say somebody is charging you for changing bushings on your radiator, because say you're getting a new radiator put in and it's just standard procedure to put new bushings in, but maybe they didn't even put new bushings in, right? That's why on certain jobs I always ask for my old parts back. Now this is a little gem right here that you can help keep people straight. Like say if you're doing this radiator job right here, but hey, when you get my old bushings out, can you just leave them in the bag? I'm going to bring them home with me. And they might be like, why do you want to do that? But you know why, we know why, they know why, because you're making sure that it gets done. And by asking for the old parts, you are keeping the mechanic and shop honest by casually forcing them to actually do the job, right? Because you're asking for all the old parts back in return. They have to do it now. They might ask, why do you want your old stuff back? Just tell them you want to inspect it or whatever. It's not even their business really, but you don't have to keep it. Just take a good look at it, and this lets you know that they did what you paid for. And let them know, they can throw it away at that point, right? You don't even have to take it home if you don't want to or whatever. This is not always necessary, but in certain jobs, you will not be able to physically see if a certain internal component was changed. These are the jobs I'm always asking for the old parts back, or I require it in my deals to call me, and I will come up, from home or from over the road, from wherever I'm sitting, or from the, from the lounge or whatever. I will come up and inspect that part, at that point of the job to make sure that, okay, so this got taken out, okay, boom, this got in, this is good. All right, yeah, everything's cool. You can keep going. I need to see this stuff. so I can observe when a big step is happening to make sure that it's done right. Especially when we're dealing with internal components that we're not going to be able to see, like once this, once the Jake brake gets back on, once the valve cover gets back on, or different things like that, or once the oil pan gets back on, we're not going to be able to see. So those are the ones that I need to. I'm making my deals that I need to come in for inspection at that point, or I need to, I need to see the old parts before they're thrown away. And a part of even knowing when these steps are that need inspection is just by getting familiar with your truck and familiar with the jobs, reading Truckerz report, going to the owner operator section, and just, probably for in the beginning, maybe 10 minutes a day, 10 to 20 minutes a day, just read through Truckerz report on the owner operator section and just see what people are up against and what they're doing to fix it. Then you'll see other people come in and say, like, oh yeah, the oil pan, this is, it's about this many hours for the job, but make sure, you have them check this and check this. And then you can even take notes of it in your notebook of different things like oil pan, make sure check this. So whenever you're up against oil pan, you can go back and look at your notes, or just even remember from having exposing yourself to it, so often that it becomes part of your awareness. Sounds like initiative, right? It is, because you are the quality control manager and the one paying the bill. So we have to take initiative to be, quality control. Make sure that the quality's there and that the bill's not getting overworked on some crazy stuff. Everything needs to pass your standards. You are the boss of this rig of yours, of this ship that you're piloting. So it has to pass your standards. This is another reason why I really despise big dealerships. A lot of them will not let you onto their floor. They want to say all this, insurance and stuff, right? To observe your own truck. To me, this is crazy. It's my truck, and I need to see what's going on. To me, it makes it seem like they're trying to hide stuff, and usually, in many senses, they are. I understand insurance requirements might say no, but they need better insurance. A clause where we can be escorted by a trained person of safety, or just let us sign a waiver saying that we won't sue them. Because I have been in plenty of independent shops that they pay a little extra on the insurance to allow people on the floor. You see what I'm saying? Dealerships definitely have the money to do that, and they don't. So to me, it's just a little fishy. And I know that's it's their choice, probably. It's their choice if they don't want people on the floor. But if the independent shops can allow me on the floor, come on. They act as if walking across the shop floor is the most dangerous thing in the world. They act as if walking across their shop floor is more dangerous than what we already do. Trucking is the 7th most dangerous job in America, give or take. I think we can get across the shop floor just fine. Huh? So this is yet another reason why going to independent shops over the big dealerships makes so much more sense. All right, let's continue right here in the red. Sometimes the mechanic on the job is not as experienced or professional as you may think, right? We've been talking about that a little bit. But the more you learn and the more you take initiative, the more you will start to realize that you may know just as much, if not more, than the mechanic, his or herself. This happens to me all the time. I get to talking to a mechanic over the road somewhere, and I realize, dang, I could do just about everything this guy can do, if not better. Still respect the mechanic, of course, but don't let the title mechanic discourage you from feeling equipped enough to handle issues yourself. I'm going to say that again. Don't let the title of mechanic discourage you from feeling equipped enough to handle issues yourself. Just because you don't have the title, or just because somebody else has the title mechanic, sometimes doesn't mean much. So, but don't let that discourage you from feeling, feeling like you don't have enough, skill or confidence to handle certain issues yourself. No. That's just the title. And sometimes those titles are given to people who haven't even earned them yet. So just learn from the good mechanics that you meet, and pay attention to everybody that you come across out here. Make sure you're getting your money's worth. Yes, they are the ones helping you, but at the end of the day, you are the customer. You're paying them, so they have to meet your standards. Period. You're paying them. You're the customer. They have to meet your standards. Make sure you get your money's worth, and make sure that they are skilled enough to do the job. Just through conversation and feeling them out. And this is when we get back into like vibe and stuff of this nature, okay? Here's another thing to keep in mind when you're dealing with the shops and part stores, well, especially shops in this case, is ask for a quote up front. You know, start to see before, and this is not always necessary, but let's just read what I wrote. Do what you can to negotiate an estimated dollar amount before the work ever gets started. It's not a bad tip. You don't always have to do this, especially with your local guys, because it gets to the point where you build a relationship where you trust them, and you don't really talk with money too much until the end you settle up. But you can still get general ideas depending on the job. But with my local guys at home, I don't really ask so much for money because we have a proven relationship. So as you progress, make mental and physical notes of how long it takes to do a job. Check Truckerz report for posts relating to your situation. Start your own thread and ask around. Usually somebody will know how many hours it takes to do a certain job. Let's say the air compressor on my M14. I wouldn't expect to pay much more than 5 hours or so labor on this job. If a shop charges $100, then I can have a good estimate in my head of $500 labor plus parts. So this is why it's so important. This is what a lot of people leave out when we're talking about being an owner operator, whether it's on the internet and different YouTubes and people and stuff. Is a lot of those guys they offer this, you can have this huge trucking company with owning no trucks and stuff like that, and a lot of it's true. But coming from the people that are really out here on the ground driving these trucks, solo owner operators, you'll begin to see more and more how important these subjects of shops, parts, and mechanics are, and being in tune with all this is what makes this, which is what increases our success by a ton, is by knowing these things. A lot of those, you'll take people who even own trucking companies and stuff sometimes, and they won't even know this stuff because they're not in tune with it. They just pay it off to a dealer and hope that the rest of their trucks are making enough money to pay for that one. But as a one truck owner operator, we don't have that convenience, or we don't have that reality, so to speak. So we get better and better at doing these things ourselves, or being aware. At the very least, we wear many hats. Okay, we wear many hats. It's all good. That's why we make the type of money that we make. When I'm at my local shops, I often save money by buying my own parts in advance. Before I get there, I'll buy my own parts. And this saves me from paying a marked up price from the parts store. And then again, for the shop to mark up the prices a little as well. Because it's just good business. When a parts store, when a shop goes to a parts store to get the parts, it took time to go get it and stuff like that. So they might buy the part for $300, then when it gets on our ticket, they'll resell it for $350 or $330. But some shops will go ridiculous and they'll charge $400 or $500 for the part. So it's just really pays to know who you're, to get a good feel for who you're doing business with, where you're at. And in some cases, especially when I'm out of town and stuff like that, if I'm able to, I'll just source the parts myself and bring the parts. So that way, that's even more, I'm not paying the marked up price from the store and from the shop. Some jobs will be harder to get an estimate on, but if you know what you need done, you should be able to get an estimated price agreed upon before start. But do aim not to come across as cheap, because it is kind of disrespectful, getting into it too much, because being cheap, disrespecting their service and their experience and quality that they're going to be bringing to the table. But do come across as a businessman. There's nothing wrong with that. And here's a big thing to do too. You'll have to pick your battles when it comes to this, but generally speaking, if you don't ask for something, you don't have to pay for it. Now, sometimes, if you're dealing with people that you like and stuff and they added it on, just let them know that you didn't ask it, and next time to let you know. Because, a good shop will let you know along the way if there's something extra that needs to be done before they do it. When you sign the work order at a new shop or over the road, write, contact me, write on the work order, they say, hey, sign this work order, write on the work order, contact me for all approvals on parts and labors not listed. Boom. Or write something of this nature, right? So that way, if they put something on that you didn't pay for, you'd be like, look, I'm not paying for this. I told you, this was the deal we made right here. To call me, I did not approve of this. you could verbally tell them, but it's much better to put this in writing. It's something about, something being on paper that tends to keep people more honest, right? All right, page 26. We're wrapping through this chapter well, but very important chapter. To get hip to working with these part stores and shops. So let's talk about part stores some more, okay? Part stores can be tricky, especially if you're from out of town. If you're from out of town, just do your best to use people's names. If you see their name on their tag, Jim or whatever, like, hey Jim, how you doing? Stuff like that. Just get in with them. Be likable while not being a kiss up, of course. And be sharp as a razor. You're sharp. You're not kissing up. You're using people's names. You're just getting by. They know you're a traveler, and you mean well. And it's okay to smile, for sure. Have a ballpark figure in mind for the price. Have a ballpark figure in mind. I have an idea of what you want to pay for it, of course. If you're in Greensboro, North Carolina, for example, call the store in Charlotte or Raleigh to see what the price is. This will give you a good gauge to what your part should cost in Greensboro. If the price is too high in Greensboro, you know what the part can cost. So tell them, hey, this part should only be $150, not $225, James. I want to buy this part, but I want to pay the $150 or whatever. Everybody's style of asking will be slightly different, but that's about how I do it. I ask for what I want very directly, but with respect. I leave very little room to say no, and I still get no's from time to time, but it's all good. Sometimes people can't do it, and if they're like, say for this instance, they're like, it should be $150. Where you take that? Well, the store in Charlotte. It's $150 at the store in Charlotte. I think you guys have it marked up. You haven't marked up too much, or whatever. And here's the thing too. It also depends on the sales guy. If he's younger, I take a more relaxed but firm approach. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. So let's just go ahead and mark me up for $150 then. Or whatever, But if he's older, I take a more calculated but respectful approach. It's like, you see, because at the end of the day, it's up to them to say yes or no. So you kind of have to read the body language, of who you're dealing with. Sometimes you really need to know the part, or sometimes you just really need the part, and there's nothing you can really do. But in the moments where the price is wrong, especially when it's wrong big time, stand your ground. Do what you can to know what you're talking about. And there's a good possibility you can get a price reduction. You can get the price to go down. And, the more we do this in all the different sectors of our business, the more what is left over. The more profit is left over for us. The more we keep these different sectors from being leaky faucets, and we fine tune how we operate each one of these sectors. Sectors. Which is, boom, right here, what I'm saying here on the next part. I should just read. $1 saved is $1 earned. Let's talk about local parts stores again, I guess. These are the places where you want the managers and the parts guys to know your name and to know your face, right? You want these people to know that you do this for real. You want them to know that you're a problem solver, that you are out here fixing stuff yourself and making your business work. Basically, you want to do what you can to get their respect. But as always in life, if you want the respect of others, you must be willing to give respect as well. If you have the time, just hang out at the stores a little bit longer than you normally would. Hang out at the store. Hang out at the parts store. Yep. Make the time if you have to. Consider it like making a deposit. The genuine time you spend in deposit with these guys and women at the part stores will build up a reserve currency that you can make withdrawals out of. Again, if your intentions are right, this is not manipulation. It's just good business, okay? Almost all successful people in business do this. Just sticking around the parts store a little bit longer and just letting people talk and listening to their stories and stuff like that. And then as you listen to their stories, you give your opinion on what they said, and just keep it cool. Don't get into like too much like political or religion stuff, or health stuff, and that way that you get to showcase that really do this stuff, and that that you're worthy to be respected and to be have that type of treatment. Okay. Oh, and see, I'm saying it right here. See, I really should just read. Listen to their stories, know them by name, be interested in their life, ask them if they have any ideas of how to fix what you're working on, especially if you're working on something like you can ask them at that time if they know about it or what they know about it, and get to know their past a little bit. Whatever they're willing to talk about or whatever they put on the table themselves. Pay attention to see if they have kids or what they like to do for fun. Pay attention to their political stance. Don't be weird about it, of course, but just take your time when listening to their stories, and let whatever is supposed to happen just happen organically. This is how we build rapport. This is how we build relationship with people in our, in this case, our local parts stores. Once you start to collect information, make sure to remember it. Write it down in your phone if you have to. But as you go back into their store, just casually bring up something that you've talked about last time. This will really help your business out in the long run. It will give you priority over other customers as well. It will give you little discounts here and there. And it will give you a more pleasurable experience when buying parts too. Even though you're buying parts, it almost becomes fun. It's like going in to check up on your old friends. Hey, Jimmy and Josh, what's going on? What do you guys got going on today? And you already know their stories, from what he's doing and what he's doing, and last month or two he was building a project and building something in his yard. You could ask and see how has that been coming? What does it look like? Oh, let me show you the pictures. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, might be even some cool stuff that you might want to know anyways. And it's just cool to see it. Then next thing you know, now who used to be your parts guy, he also knows how to build stuff. So if you're trying to build something, maybe you can ask him, what his opinion is on how to build something. It just goes like that, right? There's been times where I'll stay in the store for 30 minutes to an hour just talking because we have a good conversation going on. And that's why it really pays to be knowledgeable in many subjects in life. Right? Because the more you know and experience, the better you can hang with different people in different factions and different types of conversation. So don't dread this part of the business as maybe I did at once in the beginning, because it's just part of the game. Learn to love it, okay? But remember, you don't have to kiss up to people either. You don't have to be kissing up and all that neither. But there is a nice, pretty much perfect balance that you will find with enough practice. Yes, there will be some people that are harder to win over than others, but just stay consistent. People know when you're trying to hustle up to them or kiss up to them. It happens way too often in their line of work. So you don't want to be that person either. As long as you just keep coming in with good energy and using their names and making them laugh from time to time or feel special or respected, eventually they will crack and things will start to go your way more smoothly. You're not alone out here. People do want to help you and people do want to see you win. Cool. You can listen to this one again. If you want to get more of the energy, put into it as far as the confidence goes. But let's do a summary. And like I said, this one's we got all 30 pages here in the PDF file. Well, actually, all 38 pages in the PDF file. Less the intro and outro. And but I think I gave some pretty great tactics. Gave you a nice insight into how I do what I do, and it took years to figure out how to build these type of relationships. And a lot of it's really natural, it's really organic. I gave you the tips about showing appreciation through the business, through the gift cards for the restaurant. I showed you I put more awareness into the difference between dealerships and the independent shops, and also the importance of building an independent network, and also that parts prices do have flexibility, and and to also to do your best to know your truck and to know what you need before you go into these shops, so you can be taken more serious. So this is an important chapter when it comes to how you move when it comes to shops and the type of money that we're going to be spending on maintenance along the way. So it's very, very important to get skilled at being a diplomat of your business, a diplomat of some kind, and putting these methods into your practice. Okay. In summary, I think I've given you a great starting place and a set of strategies when it comes to how to handle yourself at shops and stores, how to present yourself at shops and stores, and what to be aware of and paying attention to in shops and stores. I've also given you tactics that I have developed over time and still use today. That's what it's all about. It's about always getting better. So use these tactics and awareness that I've shared and build and develop better strategies on top of them for yourself. Then come back and share it with us. It's all good. I'm constantly reading books about success, mentality, and deal making, and etc. So that's part of me. My commitment to always getting better, not just from the life experience, but I'm also continually, building my awareness of different methods and of success and mentality and deal making, amongst others. The main thing to remember in the shop is if you don't know what you're doing, these places will attempt to eat you alive. Think about it. You're trucking. You're looking to get your first 10, 20K up. You might be at Landstar or wherever you're doing well. You got about 6K in the bank. Boom, check engine light. Now you got to go talk to these people and they want $5,000. And all you have is 6. You were just on your way to get 10. You were almost on your way to get 20. So you can really start, taking off and not looking back. But maybe you just needed a sensor, right? Like I mentioned, I think I already mentioned it, in the story here, but like an exhaust back pressure sensor. Maybe, that sensor's out, $100 sensor, and that's the reason why your emission system's not working. But they're like, no, you need a new EGR cooler, you need a turbo, you need a new DPF filter. And if you're not knowing more so what's going on, or the components of your truck, and this, that, and the third, or whatever, maybe you will agree. And if you agree, you just you make it that much harder on yourself to get to where you want to go when you're not handling, manning up, womaning up, bossing up, or whatever, to handle these situations to the best of your ability. And to really do it to the best, we need to be knowing our truck and our parts, and we have to know, we have to get better and better and better at the points that have been made in this chapter, okay, of just how we interact with shops and part stores and the networks we build. The best way to prevent this is to really, really, really learn your truck. The more you know about mechanics, the less they will try to pull the wool over your eyes, so to speak. Understand that dealerships are not the place to go, for the most part, right? In my 10 years, I can count my good experiences at dealerships probably only on one hand. Dealerships are fine for getting parts, but the thought of letting them work on my truck almost makes me sick, literally. It's just ridiculous. Especially back in the day when I was owning when I was running my business off having a truck that had an emission system. Especially despised dealerships then. Because 1, they're probably not going to do that great of a job. 2, they probably have a huge wait time to even get in the shop. 3, they're going to be charging $150 an hour or so. 4, the shop people at the front desk have almost no enthusiasm and just really don't care usually. 5, a lot of the mechanics just follow what the computer says instead of doing real troubleshooting. This is how people end up buying a $4,000 turbo because the computer said so. But a real mechanic could see the turbo was fine, but you needed new sensors, somewhere before you get to the turbo, or somewhere before or after that. That point. This is also how dealership bills can get very expensive very quick. They basically just change parts at your expense, hoping that it will quote unquote fix it. Okay. So, I'm running a finely tuned business, right? So are you, right? We are running a finely tuned business, and we don't have time for what? We don't have time for this guesswork, all right? We don't have time, nor do we want to, to just allocate all this money to just guesswork fixes and buying all this new stuff we really don't need, especially in the beginning. Whew. That's an hour straight, huh? Understand how important important business relations are. Learn about the people you do business with. Take initiative by being a good person first. Even if somebody's a little grouchy with you, got a little attitude or whatever, just take the initiative by being a positive one first. Because, right, that's our etiquette. That's our professionalism. That's what we do. Remember, enthusiasm is contagious. So don't be overly enthusiastic and super giddy, but just bring some good and positive energy to the table, right? Make sure to respect yourself. The amount of money you spend on parts and labor is a very important part to whether you will be successful or not. Okay, that's just just a statement of truth there. But it's something that we do have influence over. All right, and you continue to put these tactics in these methods into motion that I'm talking about here on the summary and throughout this chapter. You'll definitely be steps and steps ahead and be way more competitive. If you're constantly overpaying for everything, remember like we were talking about in the home life and budgeting with paying convenience prices, now you're overpaying for this too, it's not going to add, right? If you're constantly overpaying for everything and people are ripping you off on maintenance, your chances of success will start to go way down. Especially if you team that up with home life and budgeting and buying everything at buying at convenience cost and overpaying for this. Something's got to give, right? Take this part of your business very serious, please. All right. Learn as much as you can about maintenance. Go watch people work on their truck. Pick up tips and tricks as often as you can. Lower your cost and your frequency of shop visits by investing into the tools and learning to be a mechanic yourself. Now, I'm not trying to scare you and be like, oh, you have to be a full-blown mechanic and grease all over you all the time and stuff like that. No. But the more you do get involved, the better. The more you have real experience in fixing stuff, the more the shop guys will respect you. And the better you will look when you present yourself to others in these situations. Real skills recognize real skills. Huh? Pay attention and keep learning all the time, right? You'll see me close a lot of my chapters like this because this is the stuff that this is a lot of the mentality stuff that we got to I want to reiterate over and over and over again until it gets into you. Pay attention and keep learning, right? Keep an eye on everything. Get the best deals at the best quality you can. Stay away from dealerships if possible and build relationships with your local vendors and service providers. Remember, you are highly favored. You are highly respected. You're highly appreciated. And you have an attractive personality. You have to make yourself believe this. And believe in yourself. Mentality is so important. You can do this. Good things take time and effort. But once you achieve these good things, great things can and will happen fast. Believe in yourself. Have faith that you will figure all this out. Right? And we're doing it together right now. Get yourself into a routine of success. Get yourself into a routine of always evolving and getting better at what you do. And getting better at what you have to offer. Excuse me. True happiness is priceless. If you're naturally a happy person, then don't undervalue your happiness. The happiness you share with others is real and it is valuable. So don't think you have nothing to offer, even in the beginning, right? Each person you deal with is slightly different. Figure out how to interact with each person based off their body language, their level of interest, the content of their conversation, and the direction of their conversation. You can tell what's going on with each person in a major way by paying attention to what their body language is doing, how interested they are in what you're saying, the content, what's being talked about in their conversation, and where they're going in their conversation. Direction. Oh, and don't forget, just listen sometimes too, right? Because the more we listen, the more people play their cards on the table. The more people play their cards, the more we're able to, know which cards that we should play. Because people will tell you all about themselves. If you sit back and observe, people will tell you all about themselves. Make sure that you are approachable also. That's another thing too, right? Make sure that you are approachable enough that people will want to talk to you. So, whether in a parts store, shop, out and about at the truck stops, if you're unapproachable and closed up and this and this and not looking and walking fast and stuff, then you're not going to build these relationships, in which is you're not going to lower this. You potentially make things way more stressful on yourself, and have to go things the harder way. So just keep that in mind about being approachable. You want to be somewhat approachable. So that's wrapping it up on shops and parts stores. Okay, come back to this chapter whenever you get ready, whenever you need, but it's something important, and now you know. Okay, the next topic I wanted to share with you is another important one, and aren't they all, right? You see, each chapter we're going up through through the level of skill. This is a topic I never really got great advice on, though it's very important. Very rarely is it ever discussed. And that's why I dedicated a whole chapter to it, which is how to deal with state police. Okay, state police. These are the guys and women who have authority to stop us whenever they want, and they have the authority to inspect us. And they basically have the authority to do whatever they want to when it comes to FMCSA, enforcing the FMCSA, the federal trucking regulations. State police. Now, regular local police and stuff, they can't inspect us. They can write us a moving violation or a ticket or whatever, but it's not until we get to those state police or DPS that really have the authority to stop us and inspect us. So how do we deal with them? That's what we need to get more efficient at. They can write us bogus tickets and seem to never get punished for it. The main problem about bogus inspection tickets are they go on our safety records, and companies that you lease to can terminate your contract if it happens too often. I'm going to teach you my methods of how I interact with state police and how I keep all that drama down to a minimum. So let's continue. All right, that's the close of chapter 10. Proud American Trucking Entrepreneur Tee. I got these on my website as I continue to offer more stuff in my store, okay? It's chapter 10, shops and parts stores. I'll see you over at chapter 11, how to deal with state police. All right, see you.